Every NFL team has a plan. Every single one of them. It could be a good plan or a bad plan. You know, it don't matter, but point is, every team has a plan and they're all trying to execute that plan. Now, today we're going to try to figure out what the Texans' plan is moving forward. Now, you know, there's a reason behind the moves that they've made or haven't made. You know, as much as I would love to sit here and just simply say, it's because the Texans are stupid. You know, I love saying that. But, you know, we're being realistic here. We're looking at this from a football perspective. And, you know, we're going to theorize on what the Texans are planning on doing and why they're doing what they're doing. Now, when free agency first started, I thought I knew what the Texans were doing. You know, it's obvious, you know, the moves they made. They were cheap moves. Were they the right moves? Some of them, I believe, were the right moves. Others, Ruby and McAlil, not so much. But some of the moves were indeed cheap moves. And I thought I knew what the Texans were doing. See, my initial theory was, okay, so obviously the Texans are going to hoard these comp picks. They're going to save this cap. And they're going to just draft or try to draft well this draft and kind of build on what they have through the draft. And then roll over all that cap space to next year. And then go all out in 2020 on the 4th year of Deshaun Watson's deal. See, I thought that was a plan because, look, I don't know if you guys know this, but in the NFL, there's a rule that you have to use 89% of your cap space in a 4-year cycle. 2020 is the 4th year of that 4-year cycle. So the Texans, by the end of 2020, they have to have used 89% of the cap space. And the way it's looking like right now, they haven't used that. So that's what I was thinking that we're going to do. And then obviously, I thought, you know, since all these teams that like to go all out, they make a bunch of trades. Look at the, what's it called? The Rams. They traded for Aqib Talib. They traded for Fowler. They traded for Marcus Peters. You have the Eagles. They traded for Jay Ajayi. They traded for Darby. So, like, obviously, I thought, you know, they're getting these comp picks. They're kind of saving this cap, roll it over to next year, use it all next year, because you kind of have to use it all next year, and use some of those comp picks to trade for some pieces. Now, that could be the plan, don't get me wrong, but after kind of doing some more research and digging in some more, I don't think that's the plan. Although I know some people might love that plan, going all out, it sounds fun and all. I just don't see that being the plan. I straight up legitimately believe 100% that the Texans are actually trying to build through the draft. Meaning, I don't think the Texans next year or the year after that or the year after that or pretty much ever are going to spend big in free agency. At least not for a good while. You know, obviously, Bill O'Brien and Brian Gaines said it at the scouting combine that they're planning on building to the draft. And at first, I thought that was just, you know, your typical GM and coach talk. Oh, you know, we're building to the draft, blah, 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 blah. You know, at first, that's all I thought it was. But then, you know, the whole being cheap in free agency came up. And, you know, I thought, okay, you know, maybe they're going all out next year. But then DeAndre Hopkins tweeted some things out. The first tweet is the one on the top left, And that one he tweeted out after Antonio Brown got traded and, he negotiated a new contract, making him the highest paid wide receiver in the league. At first, I didn't really think much of it. I was like, whatever. But then when he, quoted the Bleacher Report tweet about the Julio Jones contract, and then, Hopkins acknowledged it, I was like, wait. Maybe he was talking about the AB contract, and obviously he's talking about the Julio contract. But why in the world would DeAndre want a new contract? He just got a contract, right? Yes, he did get a new contract. But you guys know this. If you guys follow football really close, all these athletes care about, all these football players care about, and rightfully so, when it comes to their contract, is that guaranteed money. After 2019, meaning in 2020, that year, DeAndre Hopkins is only guaranteed $3 million. That is nothing. These players, every time a player holds out because of their contract, the Dwayne Brown situation, the Le'Veon Bell situation, it is always because of the guaranteed money. Players really don't care about the length. They don't really care about, any of that other stuff. It's all about the guaranteed money. How much money do they actually get? Like, for example, Lord forbid, say DeAndre gets hurt, the 2020 offseason. We could just cut him there, owe him $3 million, and that's it. That contract, it's pretty much due after 2019. After 2019, DeAndre is going to want a new contract. He's going to want to be paid like Antonio Brown, like Julio Jones. Why? Because one, he is a better player than them. DeAndre Hopkins, without a doubt, is the best wide receiver in the NFL, and he should be paid like the best wide receiver in the NFL. And the guaranteed money, coming back to that. So DeAndre Hopkins is probably going to get a new contract after 2019, most likely. So the Texans are going to have to fork over some more cash to DeAndre. And, that's fine. 100% fine with it. But then I started, looking some more. And then I found another player in a similar situation as DeAndre's. And that is J.J. Watt. J.J. Watt this year, actually, he's only guaranteed $2 million. After this season, Texans don't owe him a penny. Now, I don't see JJ being the type of guy to hold out. But obviously, like the Texans did to Andre Johnson years prior, the Texans like to take care of, their faces of the franchise. And DeAndre and JJ, they're two of the biggest faces of the franchise on the team. Probably the two biggest faces of the franchise on the team, because I don't think Deshaun has fully taken over yet. So JJ might get a new contract done as well. I don't think the Texans, especially with JJ's injury history, Texans and JJ, I don't think they'll finish this contract out. I'm pretty sure they'll redo this contract and give JJ some more guaranteed money. So now that's another player that the Texans have to pay, technically, because usually when the teams redo another player's contract, they always add in some extra money. So you're going to be paying JJ and especially DeAndre. I think DeAndre's going to get a huge raise, like at least by $6 million. Because right now he's getting paid like $14 million. So I do think DeAndre is going to get a huge pay raise. And I think JJ is going to get a small one. So obviously, they're going to do that. They're going to give their players a pay raise. So what happens next? Obviously you'd think they still have enough cap space to, pay some free agents, bring in some free agents. Yeah, they probably do. But then you put it in consideration. Clowney's just tagged. They still got to pay Clowney. So they got to pay Clowney. Not only that, they got to pay Merciless after the season. This Merciless last year. They got to pay him or let him walk, whatever. But you got to pay Merciless. You got to pay DJ Reader. DJ Reader, he is a dominant nose tackle. He's going to want some good money. Who else? Will Fuller. Now, obviously, you can still put the 5th-year option on Will Fuller. But Will Fuller still counts towards the cap if you put that 5th-year option on him. So, the Texans have to pay Will Fuller pretty soon. Not only that, Nick Martin, this year coming up, in my opinion, 2019, is going to be a make it or break it year for Nick Martin. If Nick Martin performs well, he stays on the team. If he performs really well, then he's going to get a larger contract. It's all on Nick Martin. I do think Nick Martin possibly gets re-signed as well. So the Texans have to pay these players. So there really isn't much cap space to go around for outside free agents. So I think the Texans are actually trying to build through the draft. And then, you bring in some other players like Zach Cunningham in a couple years. Foreman if he bounces back. You have Deshaun. So the Texans, if you actually think about it, the Texans have been drafting pretty well. Just look at all the inside players we have to keep, we have to re-sign. This is the reason why the Texans are being cheap. It's not because, Cal McNair doesn't want to spend money. It's not because, Brian Gain and Bill O'Brien are over there stealing Cal McNair's money. No, the reason is they gotta pay their guys. The Texans have some very good players of theirs that they really should keep. And, Brian Gain and Bill O'Brien have said it. They wanna, draft and develop. That's their plan, and that's what they're gonna do. Instead of spending on huge money on these outside players, they're going to keep their guys, the guys that they drafted. They're going to take care of their guys. The Texans usually tend to take care of their guys. Every now and then you do have, a Dwayne Brown situation or an AJ Boye situation, but for the most part, they took care of Arian, they took care of Andre, they took care of Brian Cushing, they took care of J-Joe, even though he wasn't drafted, but technically Joseph is going to retire Texan, so he's one of ours. She ain't no damn Bengal. And, they took care of DeAndre as well. They took care of JJ. Like, we're going to take care of our players first, and then go get some other players. And the way the Texans have been drafting low-key as of late makes sense. Justin Reed, the guy's going to be a top 3 safety in the league. Look at that. Jordan Thomas. Kiki. See what I'm saying? The Texans have been drafting well. The Texans have a plan. Let's just see if it works out. And hopefully they're able to keep their players. And hopefully they can avoid those AJ Boye situations. Because personally, honestly, being 100% real with you guys, I did not know the Texans had this many important key players to re-sign soon. And then obviously you go deeper and deeper. Cunningham, Deshaun, Foreman, hopefully if he bounces back. They got some players to keep, man. So if the Texans keep drafting well, then there's really no point of us really signing these big name free agents, honestly. I mean, look at the Patriots. And I know I always hate to say look at the Patriots, but the Patriots hardly ever spend big in free agency. You don't want to use the Patriots as an example? Sure. Look at the Colts. The Colts last year and this year, they haven't really made any moves. Last year, they didn't sign anyone special. This year, they signed a mediocre receiver in Funches and a 30-year-old injury-prone pass rusher, who I do love, in Justin Houston. They're building through the draft. And that's what the Texans have been doing. And that's what the Texans will continue to do. And I mean, so far, they got some talent. Let's just hope the Texans hit on offensive line and corner and continue to build on this foundation they already have and continue to add to it. Because I 100% believe that Brian Gaine was actually telling the truth when he said we're building through the draft. First, didn't believe it, but after looking at the contracts, looking at the people we have to pay here pretty soon next offseason, I actually believe it. And I think there's a plan moving forward. Now, do I agree with it? Well, I mean, the way they've drafted as of late, you know, it's hard to see why they wouldn't do it. But, again, in my opinion, Brian Gaine is still somewhat unproven. He's only had one draft class, and although I do like it, I still think maybe another year or two of Brian Gaine. We need to see that before we actually fairly judge him. Because, you know, who knows? You know, what if the Texans just happen to, you know, stumble upon some great draft picks in the first round and the second round with both the picks, and, you know, the Texans end up 12-4 and end up going to the conference championship game, even though I don't see it. But, you know, who knows? That's why the games are played and not won during the offseason. So let's see if it is actually the Texans' plan, or who knows, maybe they actually are just stupid. Who knows? But yeah, that's all I have for you guys for today. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you guys later. Peace.